Councillors, just letting you know we've started live recording, so if you could take your seats, please, that would be beneficial. Thank you.
And what's the topic? Yeah, you can. Spare pen?
I've got glasses.
One of the glasses.
You do it.
I don't have any need to be.
Pen? No, sorry.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for being a little bit late, but we had some technical issues, and it's important that we have those corrected for the meeting. Just a couple of housekeeping rules for those that haven't been here before. If you can ensure that your mobile phones are either turned off or on silent, please. And that for councillors too. We have the occasional one go on. I'll ask the CEO to do the initial speech. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All council meetings are filmed with both video and audio being recorded. Video is focused on this area of the room, being from Heather there across to Councillor Farrell. However, audio from the entire room is captured. By speaking during question time or at any time, you consent to your voice and any comments you make being recorded. The entire recording is currently being live streamed on YouTube and will be available on our YouTube channel after this meeting. This, of course, is to further our commitment to improve transparency of council decision making and accessibility to council meetings for all our community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. Acknowledgement and traditional custodians, recognition of all people, and opening prayer.
The Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we're now on. We also acknowledge...
Just a moment.
Sorry.
Councillors, could you please stand? Cool.
The Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we are now on. We also acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all.
Thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Councillor Farrell, seconded please.
I was looking, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Pearce. All those in favour? Carried. Apologies, Councillor Forsyth is an apology for this evening. Obituaries and congratulations.
Yes, I have a congratulations.
Councillor Farrell.
The Harriettville community is excited by the fact that Jeff Swan and Nikki have taken over the general store, and that will be hopefully commencing in September. And also congratulations to Kathy Rivera for her Multicultural Award.
Councillor Roper.
The obituary I have to announce is Brian Goss, who served as a councillor on the as it was the Shire of Bright at that point in time, I think 1982 to 1992. Brian, 10 years, living in Mount Beauty till his death. Condolences to Shire, from Shire to his wife and family.
Thank you. Sorry. Keep going.
I also have another one. It's not a condolence, this one is some congratulations. And it's actually to the group in the back row there, the Upper Cooley Community Association, and the work that they've done doing the clean up on The West Kiwa, that piece of land is now clean. The Blackberries cooperative project with North East Catchment Management Authority and a little bit of help from us, but mainly it was come about with the persistence and diligence of the Upper Kiwa Valley Community Association and the hard work of Bill West. So thank you. It looks like the community thanks you.
Thank you. Any others?
If I may, Mr Mayor?
Yeah.
Take a point. I'd just like to thank my family for being here tonight in case I don't stay for general business. Thank you for all the support.
And welcome. I just have one. Recently I attended a National Emergency Service Medal presentation in Wodonga, and that was for the 2009 bushfires, where there were quite a number of recipients from within our shire who received that special award from various CFA brigades within our shire. So I think it's worthwhile acknowledging the work that those volunteers had done on over that campaign, and that campaign is that medal is also awarded to emergency services workers in Queensland for the floods up there. So it's not just for Victoria, but it is an Australia-wide medal. It's a national emergency medal, and I want to congratulate all those people who were recipients.
Yeah.
Declarations by councillors of conflict of interest. Neil? Question time. I have some questions on notice. I'll deal with those first. The first question on notice is from Jane Sullivan of Smoko. Question 1. Can the Shire itemise year on year for the past 5 years the actual amount of the special rate at Dinner Plain? I use the word actual rather than average specifically.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I can then respond to that. So commencing with 2010-11 and going through to 2014-15, the actuals are $675,298, $686,914, $572,478, $494,264, and finally $562,437.
Thank you. The second question, there are 3 questions to this request. The annual report lists 80% of general rate 1 year, with the audited amount the following year being reported to be 90% of the general rate. Is that true, and who authorised it to jump to 90% in Dave Barry's first year as reported in his first annual report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The question actually relates to the 2011-12 and the 2012-13 financial years. A revaluation was conducted in 2012, and that revised the Dinner Plain property valuations down by $44 million, or 23%, which is a big jump down and actually has the direct effect of affecting negatively the rate revenue collected for Dinner Plain. So therefore the Dinner Plain special rate was adjusted up by 10% to partially compensate for that. And that actually delivered a $77,000 reduction from the draft budget for 2012-13. And the budget itself was actually adopted by Council.
So, Mr Mayor, just to confirm, Council made the decision.
Very good, thank you. The third question, the year Ian Nichols left, he reduced the rate to ratepayers when the contract for the bus was renegotiated. What was the actual reduction that year and why was it not carried forward for the next 3 years?
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Mrs. Green?
The question answered by Trevor sitting next to me partially answers this question, that there was a reduction in the special rate, then an increase based on property values. In terms of the bus operation at Dinner Plain, in 2012 the bus service was operated by Christian's Bus Company and cost the ratepayers of Dinner Plain $317,000. As a result of a new tender, the cost was reduced in 2013 to $127,622. It was then re-tendered again, and the cost in 2014 was $191,933, and 2015 $169,978. The price for this year and next year will be in the vicinity of, we can't give an exact amount, $180,000. So it really depends on the tendering.
Thank you. They are the questions from Jane Sullivan, and they have been answered.
Mr Mayor, can I just ask that Jane Sullivan's not here tonight? Can these answers be sent to her by mail, please?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we understand that Ms Sullivan likes to view our council meetings via our YouTube channel, and we will alert her that her questions have been answered on the YouTube channel.
Thank you. The second question on notice is from Mr Laurie Torero. The question is related to Mr Torero. You're present. Do you want to speak to it directly, sir?
No, I have an additional question, so do the first one first.
Just a moment. I'll deal with your. I'll read your question out then first, sir. It is about. The question is related to one of the 3 shops that are nearing completion in Camp Street, Bright. It is about the shop at the south side. The south corner of the building is on the corner of the footpath just where the road bends to the west, and just near it there is also a power pole. The distance between the corner of the building and the power pole is 1.2 metres. It is an unusual arrangement. It looks as if either the power pole or the corner of the building are in the wrong place. Is the Alpine Shire aware of the situation and is it planning to do something about it? I think Ms Green has a reply to that.
Thanks, Laurie. Yes, council is very aware of it. The building is within the private property owner's property. It just happens to be that the curb and channel there is very close to the property boundary. To try and ensure there is a reasonable width of footpath there, the power pole is to be removed. The power, I think, has already been rerouted across the road, and we're waiting on Telstra to reroute their infrastructure. So that will happen sooner rather than later. And then in the longer term, when the curb and channel there needs redoing, we'll look at trying to adjust that even further. But it will still have a footpath meeting our minimum requirements for high volume pedestrian usage.
Good, thank you very much.
Mr Trower, you have a direct question then?
Yeah, the other question is a very brief one. Is what is the reason for the restructure to the library in Bright has never been mentioned on the website, on the official Alpine Shire website?
Well, Mr Ferrer, we have, I believe we have some questions in relation to the library pending this evening. If it's acceptable to you, we could answer those questions perhaps in in one go from the CEO or the appropriate officer. If at the end of that time you believe that your question is not answered, I'm happy to take your question in relation to that. So that we're not duplicating everything, perhaps one of these questions, and one of them is on notice, which I'll deal with next. That may answer some of your question, but if you believe it hasn't been answered, I'm happy to talk to you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The third questions on notice is from Derek Butler, the Secretary, Bright District Ratepayers Association. The question on notice is from Jim Bates, President of the Bright and District Ratepayers Association. I think Mr. Bates is present. Mr. Bates, do you want to deal with this directly, or would you like me to read it, sir?
No, I've got a little preface that if I can put all the questions on notice, that I'll set the scene a bit.
I'll hear your preface.
Is that all right?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll go. Everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Despite public assurances on Facebook that the transition from the High Country Library Corp to the Shire would result in no change to hours, staffing and service, the proposed new library structure clearly results in staff changes.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Is the purpose of question time for questions, not for grandstanding?
I'm not grandstanding, I can assure you I'm not grandstanding.
Well, can we get to the question, please?
Just a minute, please. I'm the president of the Ratepayers Association, and I don't normally come here to your meetings unless I think it's a serious issue or I'm pissed off, to put it bluntly. But I just think this is such an important issue that you've got to give us a bit of time to, first of all, develop our argument, but also to propose our questions. So please, just give me a couple of minutes of your time, and I promise it won't be more than...
It is a public issue, Mr. Bates, I recognise that, and I will give you some time to prepare your question as background, but not too long, sir.
No, fine, thank you. The structure clearly results in staff changes and appears to experienced librarians and users that non-viability of the new structure will inevitably result in service reduction and perhaps hours. I understand the Shire has been presented with a problem resulting from the 3 Shire amalgamations, Mount Beauty, Myrtlefoot and Bright, and the demise of the HCLC, resulting in the tyranny of distance with 3 excellent libraries rather than 1 like other shires in the region, and I refer to Mansfield, Wangaratta and Benalla. The Bright Library itself and the 3 Alpine Shire libraries together head statistics in the region for service and use. We must not throw out a proven, efficient, effective, compassionate, user-responsive library structure for an unproven new one. We must not lose this asset. Given that the early and long-standing position presented to the public about transition differs from the reality of the current proposal, I ask the following questions. To the best of our knowledge, there has been very limited contact with current library staff, but no real consultation. So what consultation has been carried out by the Shire, and I'll take the word councillors out because I understand they had nothing to do with this, has been carried out by the Shire with current library staff, other professional librarians, friends of the library, users, ratepayers and tourists, and contrast this with the extensive review and consultation undertaken with the Shire staff before restructuring? That's the first question. Do you want me to ask all 4 or do you want to answer one at a time?
Yeah. I'm trying to give a succinct answer to this, Mr. Bates, because can I maybe just briefly ask you to clarify the changes that you believe we're making?
The changes, as we understand it, are there's going to be 1 supervisor librarian who will be responsible for all 3 libraries and will be travelling from one to the other with only 22.8 hours of actual time given to them to actually do a very, very responsive job, a very responsible job.
And sorry, again, for a question. Do you understand the nature of that role and what number of hours do you think it would take to do that job?
Well, you'd have to talk to the library staff to find out exactly what is needed, but I would have thought a full-time job for sure, not part-time.
Yeah. So, absolutely, I can assure you, if it ends up being a full-time job, if that's the requirement of the role, like everything we do in this organisation, we have ample scope to adjust that. So if you look, and I think you're fortunately, I'm talking to someone who I think has been very praising of what we've done in the past. If you look at this organisation, we have reduced our head count by about 75 staff in the last 2 years. And I think you will see limited, if any, impact on service. In this case, my sense is I'm frustrated that where we have reduced 75 staff through a really good communication process with our staff and with our community, we have been able to do that in a way that I think has been very clear. And I think you acknowledge that in your question. I'm frustrated by this process that we have been unable to engage with staff or community until very late in the piece, because it is, and I'm not trying to pass the buck here, it has not been our responsibility, it has not been our decision. In relation to there is, I think you've acknowledged that there is only one item of contention here, because we have no proposal to change hours, opening hours. We do have a proposal to increase our staffing by up to 15 hours if that's needed. So we currently have 149 hours of staffing a week. We can put that up to 164 or 165 hours quite readily, and we have budgeted for that. We believe we will have very skilled staff in this library, and by way of background, our most junior staff member in that library will earn approximately $60,000 a year, which is a $2,000 increase on what High Country Library will pay them, and the most senior member will earn about $75,000 a year. Based on our conversations with High Country Library Corporation, our benchmarking against similar councils, how we have separated the roles. So if you think the supervisors previously to this, or the branch managers, did two things. They did transactions, and they strategized about the future of that branch. We are removing the transactional nature from that role. We have estimated, based on industry benchmarking, what that transaction amount is, and that will now be done by a Band 3 $60,000 a year employee. So the higher level role will solely focus on strategic issues. It will not be a transactional component. And the reason behind that, so I mean, I can go into the reason behind it, but effectively we want to ensure that our programs are delivered in a very sustained way. We don't want disjointed connectivity between the branches. We want our outreach program to continue. I could go on with a list of tasks there. But we are confident in the structure, but we are also confident that we have a very strong plan B if it doesn't work. And I think what I'm hearing you say is across a service, across 3 libraries, and a whole heap of staff, that we're in disagreement about 16 hours a week. Well, to me it seems, adjustments in that quantum are very easy to make.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than that, because you haven't spoken to any of the staff, so they don't know any of this. You're telling them for the first time.
So I will absolutely refute that. I have an email here from the manager of corporate, and I'll have to be very strong on this, because I believe that there are certain staff members, and I'll be a little bit blunt here, that are misrepresenting the communication. Our manager of corporate services has written here, someone I very much trust, that she has spent over 50% of her time in the last 3 months dealing with library staff. We have gone through a formal submission process in accordance with our enterprise agreement, something we were not compelled to do where we got written submissions. Excuse me for being defensive on this, the very indicator of that is that we had one original structure proposed. So, how do we show that we have consulted and listened? Well, we had an original structure proposed that saw library staff integrated with customer service staff. We abandoned that structure. The library staff will now stand alone. They will have a dedicated coordinator. We committed that all level of resourcing will be maintained, and that there will be full backfill for each position, something the staff are concerned about. And also staff were concerned about the location of the hub at the Murderford Chambers, and we have relocated that hub. So I think it is disingenuous, and by the way, can I say, At this point in time, we have 11 staff members that have put in applications for positions across the High Country Library network. So I think it is unfair to characterise, and those staff are very supportive of the structure, and we've had a number of staff ring us and say they're supportive of the structure. So it would be unfair to characterise, as in any change, you will always have a small number of staff that disagree. So I can go down through the dates and the times of consultation if that's meritorious.
We would like, as the Ratepayers Association, because we certainly didn't know about it until we saw the letter in the local rag last week. We didn't know anything about it, and we've had several meetings. Had several meetings with you on other issues, and it wasn't even raised.
Oh, look, can I say we haven't? This issue has been on. This decision was made over a year ago. I have not heard one peep about it. Indeed, I wrote in a Facebook post recently that anyone I spoke with about this did not show the slightest bit of interest in the matter, because they saw clearly that the changes envisaged were, to say minimal would be an understatement, until a number of people have spread information that is wholly incorrect, and that has caused angst within our community. And you have to bear in mind that all of the communication around this rested with High Country Library, and at the time they released their report that was commissioned by CIS, there was 161 submissions. So for those people to say they weren't engaged and communicated with and don't recall the consultation, that is disingenuous.
It is and it isn't. I understand what you're saying, and you're putting a very good point from your own side of the table, but the fact of the matter is that we've heard nothing about it. There's been no consultation anywhere other than, I believe, within council. I don't believe there's been anything out there. I'd certainly like to see some of what you say has happened.
I can only refer you to the Facebook post on High Country Library, the post on our website, the media releases, the newspaper articles at the time. This has been in the public domain.
No media releases.
For sure, and I have made those available to the staff. There was media releases on our website, Facebook post, media coverage at the time of the decision, both in our local media and the Border Mail, and if I recall correctly, also on television. Sorry for being defensive, but that is what has happened. Is with the passage of time, people have forgotten.
Well, we certainly
the consultation.
Didn't know anything about it as a ratepayer.
Okay, as chair of the High Country Library Board, this decision was made last year. It was fully publicised. We've had meetings with all our staff when it was first decided, and it was in the paper. It was everywhere that High Country Library Corporation was going to disband, if that's the word you want, and councils were going to take over their own libraries. That's never been a secret, never.
So I don't have a problem with that. I just have a problem with the consultation process.
Yeah, and also,
and that's what the question's about.
Can I say that there is? So I think I've talked you through that the responsibility didn't rest with us. That we have a proven track record in consultation, and sometimes, as you well know, when people have varying views, my difficult decision. And as you know, we've had the third lowest rate increase in the state last year, likely to be the lowest rate increase this year. You know that whole spiel.
We're not.
No, but hold on. One of the things is when people occasionally disagree with the decisions we make, rather than saying we have been consulted and we have not been agreed with, what they will say is they have not been consulted. And I can only point to you, over the last 3 months, Ms. Williams, who sits in the left-hand corner here, has spent 50% of her time on library-related matters. We have been to Wangaratta, we have spoken how many hundreds of emails, how much internal meetings, how much benchmarking. Leanne's been working from the branches. We've met with Facebook friends, we've met with friends groups. The level of feedback on Facebook, spoken with people on the phone, in person. We've read the CIS report, we've read the 161 submissions in there. We've met with headquarters staff, we've met with the branch librarian at Wangaratta Library. We've met with the HCLC CEO on many occasions. We've met with all Alpine Charter. Yeah, I can go on. Like there's another 5 bullet points here. So
yeah, that's fine. But we still haven't been told about it as ratepayers. You say you have put it out there, but
so can I ask you again?
We're not dumb. We read the papers. We go to other council meetings. We do all the sorts of things you're talking about. Hey, we're the ratepayers. How come we don't know about it?
So I think. But we're coming back to a point here around a 16-hour change. We don't communicate with we don't put out every time we make a staff change of 2 days EFT, we do not communicate with our community on that, unfortunately, Mr. Bates. We don't.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. I'll put the second question because it still comes back to a similar thing. And again, I'll take the councillors out, but they are part of it. Are the Shire confident that they have sufficient knowledge about how the libraries work to be certain that the service and hours will not be reduced as a result of the staffing cuts? And
Well-
what is the basis for your confidence?
So, what would you expect me to say? Only yes?
Well-
No, but hold on. So the basis for our confidence is we're not making any substantive change. So we're adopting a low-risk approach to this, where we are not changing hours. We have the capacity to increase resourcing. It will either stay the same at 149 hours a week, or it can increase to 164. So in that we are making no change, we see it as low risk. Secondly, as you know, we are not an arrogant council. So if things start to go off track, we will of course modify and adjust as we do across every single service, across at what one point was 300 staff and 1,000 different service and delivery areas. So our approach, the only way I can answer that question is, we're not changing, you've acknowledged it yourself, we're talking about 16 hours in a very big service. The change is very limited and we have absolute scope to adjust and would not be so arrogant as to not do that.
Yeah. Okay. I might just point out, by the way, that certainly the most senior staff you've got isn't going to apply for any of the jobs you're talking about,
Sure.
which is a damn shame.
It absolutely is.
And I think that's a direct result of your lack of consultation with those people. That's how it comes across.
Mr. Bates, that is supposition, I won't allow it.
Okay, all
So
right.
can I just add, I have,
Country Library's responsibility to have done that.
To what?
So, yes,
To talk to Dave?
No, so-
consult with their staff.
Oh, yeah, no, they've
so
done
these
things
are,
only,
these
but-
are not our staff, but all I can tell you is that, for example, in the case of the Bright Library, we shaped a position that had the same staffing levels as the senior staff member there. We also, while every other library was compelling qualifications for that position, we removed the requirement for qualification. So there was a job available to that person should they have chosen to take it. I can only tell you of one staff member that has given me feedback on why they're not applying for a position, and that staff member said to me that their tax-free redundancy offer was too much to refuse, because if they got the role, they do not get the redundancy. I am not saying that that applies to every staff member, but I have only one person tell me why they did not apply for a role. And can I say to you, again, I will reiterate, 11 High Country Library staff have applied for a role with us. Thank you.
All right.
Do you want to go on your fourth question, Mr. Bates?
Well, in what way does the hub working out of Myrtleford interact or influence the proposed new structure, in particular the short-term contracts with the other shires? What if they decide after 12 months that they don't want to be part of it?
So the reason we were chosen at the hub is because of the confidence of the other councils. You've got to bear in mind this hub is located in Wangaratta at the moment. Because of those councils' confidence in our ability to deliver a great solution. I think if you look at our local government performance reporting framework, and you've acknowledged some of them earlier, and if you look at our trend in rates and service quality and cost, we will continue to deliver a great solution. I'm not sure what you're heading at there.
Well, you said in your Facebook that it was a bonus for the Shire because it required 4 casuals or 2.5 permanent jobs
Yeah,
to
4.
run the hub, and in fact it would be a money-making venture for the Shire.
Yeah, there's a list of benefits there, I guess. Firstly, the reason we wanted the hub is because it gave existing staff the maximum level of redeployment opportunities available. That was the first reason why we sought the hub. The second reason is we're acknowledged as a high-performing council, and we felt it compelled upon us to be able to deliver the best possible service to the region, and we feel that what's in our control enables that best chance to happen, and we know we can deliver the best service at the lowest cost, and that is why other councils supported us. The third thing is it will create significant local employment in Myrtleford or in the region. And there is a risk with any shared service that where we start to share services, every service makes its way to Wangaratta. That leads to our rural communities and our councils being dumbed down, and that is something we want to avoid. So this is a great employment opportunity. It's the cheapest option for all councils, and it will generate income. And of course it will also strengthen our libraries, because we will have absolute control from the very highest level in the library at the hub level down to the branch level, which means that we will be able to, we control that, so we will be able to provide the best possible support to our staff. We will have the libraries with the most amount of qualified staff. We will have the library actually with the most amount of staff in the entire network, even more than Wangaratta. So we will be set up with a very resilient service. Also, we'll be able to have development opportunities for staff and opportunities for staff to migrate in and out of the hub.
Mr Mayor, can I just ask a question, please? You said you were going to make money out of the hub. That's not quite true. We don't make money out of the hub. It's split 4 ways.
Yeah, we will get an income to cover our corporate overhead, and the shared service will be split 4 ways. So if we reduce costs, the other councils share in it. Mr Mayor, will I just briefly, I can very briefly answer question number 3.
Yes.
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 Is there a plan to involve redundant shire staff in temporary or part-time work to maintain the service? Absolutely yes. We have had preliminary conversations with some staff members around that already, and they have volunteered their time. If we have new staff members that come into play, I have publicly committed on several occasions that they will not count towards any level of resourcing. And if you can tell, I'm a little agitated over this matter, because like everything we do, we try and do things better. And it is always disappointing where when you're trying to deliver a service better, there are certain people, and I'm not saying you, but there are certain people that seek to somehow make it out that you're trying to penny pinch or save money. I can assure you we will not save $1 in our branch network, not 1 cent. So this is all about delivering better service, and it is. Can I finish? One thing on the structure was around, we have more supervisors than staff, and when I mentioned this at the last meeting in Mount Beauty, people laughed. No organisation as you go up the chain has more people at the next level, and substantively more people. So if we have 3 people on the ground, we have 4 people at the next level. Well, you've often complained about the Alpine Shire having some of the highest rates in the entire state. That sort of practice is what causes that. And that is the sort of practice that has caused the High Country Library Corporation to implode. So I will not kick the can down the road and cause people's jobs to be vulnerable into the future and underpin the sustainability of our libraries through trying to appease people, a small bunch of people.
Okay. Thank you for answering those questions. I'll leave you with one more piece of paper. I won't read it out. But the Alpine Shire, by comparison with Benalla, Wangaratta and Mansfield, is easily the best run library.
Absolutely.
Easily, by a long, long mile.
Yep.
And I'll just give you those, because they stand alone, and if you're going to improve the service, you've got some mighty high fences to jump.
I think these are the figures that I have used many, many times to, and there's more, to secure the hub for this shire. So these figures I've actually emailed. These are figures that I've generated myself. I've sent this.
I produced those myself.
Well, I sent this spreadsheet on to someone else only last week with exactly the same column headings and formats. So Mr. Priestley is who I sent it on to.
No, we're not done, are we?
Thank you.
Great men think alike.
Mr Mayor, can I just make a comment before we finish this conversation, just to put it out there?
Thank you.
I would just like to say that we should be moving forward with our libraries. We should be making this a nice, smooth. We've had our hiccups, yes, and the board is as at fault as anyone else. But I do believe that we need to move on and make sure that it is a seamless changeover. And I really believe we can do it. We just need to get together and work together, please.
I think that's a well said statement, Councillor Lennox.
Can I add to that, Mr Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you for the questions. I'd just like to say it's a good news story that our shire has been granted this hub, that we've got that. It's great for our communities, and we should celebrate the fact that we've got a shire that's so interested in their libraries, with 3 libraries that are overpopulated outside all the other shires in our local area. It's a good news story.
It is. Thank you, councillors. I'll take questions from the floor. There are no further questions on notice. I'll take questions from the floor. Mr. Priestley.
Thank you, David Priestley, Chairman of the Friends of Bright Library. Some of what I was going to read out, I spent the whole afternoon typing these questions up, but that's the trouble when you let the ratepayers in on what you're doing. We have two Alpine Shire representatives on the High Country Library Corporation, who presumably been right across the proposed changes which will see their council, ratepayers and 3 libraries come together. Yet according to council minutes there hasn't been one word from either person, one of whom is the chairman of the HCLC, the other is a council employee. Should I ask about a conflict of interest there, or is it mandated by state government? These proposals...
Can we answer that straight away? Would you like to answer that?
I can explain the mechanics of this through Mr. Mayor. High Country Library is an entity that is established under the Local Government Act. It is entirely separate from council. In the same way as Alpine Children's Services, we have a similar relationship with, but they are entirely separated from council. Councillors serve on that board. When they serve on that board, they do not act as councillors. They act as board members and can only act in the best interests of the library. That is why this decision has not been council's decision, but it has been a decision of the board. You should not take that for me to say that I don't believe council supports this decision. I believe council does, because it was very evident that the High Country Library had no long-term future and that its only option was to go into liquidation. But to be clear, legally, structurally, in every manner, and when those councillors act on that board, they are not acting as councillors, they're acting as board members.
Thank you for explaining that to me.
Mr. Mayor, through you, Mr. Mayor, I actually brought a report to council, I think it was to the June 2015 meeting around the dissolving of the board and transfer of operations to member libraries.
So that was a
member
report.
councils.
That was a report informing council of the board's decision. I should also say this phenomenon is occurring all across the state, and it happened at Upper Murray Regional Library, you will recall, only 2 or 3 years ago.
I hadn't actually finished.
Sorry.
Neither representative has, despite promises from the chairman, spoken to library staff or friends groups about these changes. Now, I am aware that the chairman popped into Bright Library this afternoon because I happened to be there. So that could be slightly out of date. But the main criticism that has come from council staff has been lack of information.
Excuse me if I could just say, you're talking about High Country Library Corporation. If you have any complaints, refer them to me out of this chamber, please.
Can I say, the reason Councillor Bonnax cannot speak for High Country Library Corporation in this chamber because she is acting as a councillor. Can I also, Mr. Priestley, ask you again, when you're, because I hear this word quite frequently, being the changes, in a $800,000 service, can I ask you what you mean by the changes?
Well, can I read question 3? Why hasn't council used its current library staff to promote changes to Bright Library now and in the future? This is the biggest change since almost 17 years ago to the day. Public anger prevented the then council and its staff from embarking on a rather harebrained scheme to erect another story. Council has had the opportunity of having its message freely promoted in the most positive way by the frontline library staff, but they have been spectacularly ignored by senior staff, and with only one exception, Councillor Kate Farrell, by the councillors responsible to the ratepayers. There is nothing wrong in taking your staff along the journey with you.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, what staff are you referring to? We don't have any staff in the library.
Dave Barrett, I think you're splitting hairs.
Excuse me.
They're not our staff.
They're not our staff. we're not even, we've many times approached High Country Library Corporation, but I have had someone come to me and said that the senior staff member in the Bright Library was anxious about the changes. I immediately rang the CEO at High Country Library Corporation and expressed to him, and excuse me getting angry over this, because I expressed to him my upset that a member of the library here was going through some turmoil. We have been made very clear that we are not to interfere with staff from another organisation. So they are not our staff, and any suggestion is wholly incorrect, and it has been made clear to us by that corporation that we were to have no involvement with their staff.
Well, in that case, I withdraw that and apologise.
Can I also make a point here that I have stated before? Councillors employ the CEO. They do not interfere with staffing of a council.
High Country Library CEO.
No, councillors of the Alpine Shire do not interfere with staffing of the Alpine Shire. We employ the CEO only. The same applies to the board of the High Country Library Corporation. We employ the CEO. We do not get involved. We're not allowed to get involved with staffing.
Right.
And sorry, that's the Local Government Act for you.
It's okay. 2 down, 1 to go. At a very well attended, this is a comment, by the way, if that's all right with you.
Last comment.
Thank you. Sorry?
Point of order, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
Question time is for questions, not for statements or comments.
I understand that I also understand this is a community concern, and I'm prepared to listen.
Mr Mayor, this concern that our ratepayer has is that High Country Library, there is a loop user of our library that is run by High Country Libraries Corporation. If the question is about the current running of the library, it should be referred to High Country Libraries. Alpine Shire does not as yet have control of the libraries or the staff.
I understand
Can
that.
I make my comment, which has had nothing to whatsoever to do with your
Question time is for questions.
I understand that, Councillor Roper. I do understand that, and I'm sure Mr Priestley does too. And he understands that there are a number of issues that have been clarified now in his mind, I'm sure.
It's going to be complimentary.
Thank you, Mr. And I'm happy to hear compliments, Mr Priestley. And it's probably...
And I hope Councillor Roper gets out of the right side of bed tomorrow.
No, he is always out of the right side of the bed.
We had a very well attended meeting at the Bright Library run by the Friends of Bright Library on May the 24th. CEO Dave Barry and Manager of Corporate Leanne Williams were both there. They both made a commitment to come along to the Friends of Bright Library meetings. Dave Barry said he'd be attending every second meeting. So we're looking forward to his presence on July 26th with a reminder, attendees bring a plate. And no doubt he'll be bringing us up to date on the August 1 changeover. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Priestley. If the biscuits are provided by the Alpine Shire, they are now in... they are now no name.
Black and gold.
Black and gold.
No biscuits, we make them ourselves.
You're in even more deeper water, Mr Priestley, if you're expecting me to make the biscuits, because people might end up with food poisoning the following day.
We were thinking more along the lines of muffin or chocolate.
Mr Mayor, can I just, sorry, I know, thank you for indulging me in my commentary on this, but I hope that people in the chamber tonight and more broadly understand our passion for libraries, and probably what has frustrated me the most in this process has been our inability to communicate from start to finish, unlike all of the other changes that this organisation has been through, which has made me and others feel that this issue has been lumped upon us. And I guess I've had a sense that there has been a view that we're trying to penny pinch here. I will again reiterate that there will be no cost savings from any of the changes we're making in a hundreds of $1,000s service. We are talking about changes that will have an impact of 16 hours a week in moving from one band level to another. We have, as always, several plans to fall back on if that does not work out amply. and our sole intention in making these what we would see as minuscule changes is to promote better cohesion between the three branches. And I suppose I'm disappointed that when we seek to improve services, and our track record has been shown that we have improved services, our community satisfaction survey shows us that, your feedback shows us that, and that there are some people that seek to undermine that very genuine effort. So hopefully some of my passion is clear that that's what we're committed to, and that we will change and evolve always in response to ratepayer needs. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Again, we'll continue with questions from the floor. Mr. Torreira, I just want to, maybe you could finish up on this subject. Are you satisfied that your question has now been answered?
Not really.
Oh. Righto. We might as well get this topic over and done with.
Well, the question was why there was no mention of the restructure of the library on the web, on the Alpine Shire web page.
Mr. Mayor, I can only reiterate my previous comment that, as I understand it, CIS, and I'm now speaking on behalf of an organisation that I have nothing to do with, but as I understand it, High Country Library Corporation engaged CIS to complete a report. They went through broad community consultation, and the only evidence that I can give you that occurred is they got 161 submissions. They issued media releases during the course of the change. We issued a media release informing our community of what High Country Library had sent to us. As I understand it, that media release appeared in local media, the Border Mail, and if I recall correctly at the time, on television. It was also published on Facebook pages. So I think it was ubiquitous coverage at the time, but it is understandable that 1 year down the track, people, because it's taken a year to implement it, that people, this may have escaped their memory, and probably escaped their memory because they saw it as a non-event, in that we are proposing to keep service outcomes the way they've always been, although we would seek to improve some of the programs that we're delivering.
So, simple answer is
I feel it was well communicated at the time.
In other words, it was not your jurisdiction to put it on the web.
Because it was not our jurisdiction, but we still did it at the time. We got the High Country Library media release and circulated it on our website. So, and we wasn't our jurisdiction at the time, and we still don't run these libraries, but we will in the not too distant future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Torreira.
Excuse me, Laurie, it is on the web, by the way.
what is, yeah.
Libraries, it comes under libraries. Council will take over operation of the Bright Medal for the Mount Beauty Libraries from 1st of August 2016.
That's not what we're asking about. We're asking about the details of the change. We all knew what was going to change.
Sorry, Mr. I'll come back to this one.
That part of the questioning is,
Can I just come back to the word change, Mr. Mayor, and say,
yes.
people used it the whole time. I'm struggling to understand what it is.
That's right.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by that?
There is no change.
Three, Mr. Mayor, when everyone has come up here and said change, my response has been, what is the change? So can I ask you again what you believe the change is?
I refer to the restructure of the library, the Bright Library. In other words, mentioning the changes you mentioned earlier when you were talking to our president.
I think the only change, Mr. Torreira, is the fact that Alpine Shire is now going to be the employer of those staff. I understand there is no other changes to occur.
Well,
in the hours, the operating hours, or
Staffing hours.
Staffing hours.
But the staffing has changed. The if I get it. I can't remember the details, but I know that you have altered you are going to alter the hours worked by the level 5 and reduce the hours worked by level 3 and increase the hours worked by the casuals.
No, that's a rumour that's circulating around casuals. So for us to employ casuals versus part-time staff is, it costs us the same to employ casual staff as part-time staff, and normally we discuss with staff members whether they would rather be employed casually or part-time. So we have no determination on that. There's a mix across
Point
the
of order,
board.
Mr Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Wright.
We seem to have been bogged down by the Bright community and the Bright Friends of Bright Library. I don't see any questions from the Mount Beauty Library users or the Myrtleford Library users. I think we have done this topic to death, and I would like to move on with the main body of the agenda so as we can complete our business and go home.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wright, but thank you, Mr Torero, for your time. Trish, I understand, from the UKCBA representative.
Trish Cross from I have two questions. The first question is on behalf of the UKVCA. I note from today's agenda the Alpine Chalet Council has applied for a Victorian Government grant for upgrading the Mount Beauty pool, which is wonderful. Can you please, and it's probably directed at Charlie in his role, can you indicate the project scope that has been developed with the pool specialist that was mentioned in the agenda, and also what upgrade work is planned?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We haven't applied yet for the application. We will apply for it tomorrow. And so this was just seeking Council's financial commitment for that application.
Yep.
There's a range of items we're proposing to upgrade. They include the installation of 3 shade shelters structures, a new water play feature in the toddler pool, upgrading the non-slip pool tiles around the main and toddler pools, painting the pool lining, upgrading the balance pipes and repairing the concourse and wet deck.
Great. That's good, because as soon as people see that, they'll want to know what's happening. So thank you. We look forward to that. Second question is on my part. Is the Alpine, with the council elections coming up at the end of the year, is the Alpine Shire Council offering info sessions to aspiring councillors? I know in other parts of Australia, local councils often have info sessions on the role of the councillor, the electoral process.
I think Mr Barry can answer that one right now.
Right. Yes, we are.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I do not have the details to hand because they are organised by Municipal Association. Sorry, Ms Williams may have a contrary view.
We're going to have a candidate information session here in the Bright Chambers, 7 p.m. on the 14th of July.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and that'll be advertised.
Yeah. And I know I'm going to speak at the Indigo Council information session, I think, which is a few days later.
Right. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cox. Yes, Beth.
I'm Beth Smith from Mount Beauty. I also belong to the Community Association, but this question's on my behalf. The Kiwa Crescent reconstruction with angle parking is fantastic. However, the double lines are causing a problem. We've seen people in cars and on bikes forwarding over them to get into car parks, and also reversing over them to get out. So I guess my question is, can this be discussed, and can some sort of barrier be implemented to discourage this practice?
A big fence.
Big fence?
Just kidding.
Rumble strip?
Mr Bird.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The design was, I guess the angle parking is good feedback to hear that's been a success. That was initially suggested by the Mount Beauty Police about the problems of people reversing back illegally across to the other side. And the intention of the white lines, or the double white lines, was to prevent that from happening. But from what I'm hearing, that's not
Not efficient.
So we will look into that further to see what we can do to put some barrier in place. And I don't know what's technically feasible, but we'll look into that.
Mr. Bird, I think it's a cost about $300 and something and about 3 points on your licence. Maybe we might be able to refer the matter back to the Mount Beauty Police.
Excellent suggestion.
We'll have to book one. That's all we have to book.
I need to book one too. That'll do.
Are there further questions from the floor? Just one. Sir, in the middle.
My name is Brian Littlchild. I'm from Germantown. I don't represent any other body than myself. My first question, I've got several questions, but I expect a succinct answer, and I don't expect to delay you for any length of time. Could you tell me why it is that the excessive number of Band 5 employees addressed that problem isn't addressed by filling the positions and re-advertising those jobs?
All positions, because we're employing new staff, will be advertised.
No, I'm not talking about the library. I'm talking about the council as the whole of the council.
So as a whole, we did that approximately 18 months ago, where we spilled the vast majority of our positions, and that resulted in 1/3 of our staff being made redundant, a reduction across all bands, and I think we spilled nearly all our staff.
So how do you eventuate with this current problem?
We don't have a current problem.
You don't. I thought you said that you had a Band 5, excessive number of Band 5.
No. I observed that High Country Library Corporation had that problem. It's a problem that we have rectified.
Okay, thank you. Second question was, what changes are mooted for all libraries in this region from the anticipated saving of $150,000?
So like all savings that...
Well, I believe, having attended the meeting that you addressed, that there were savings, and we call them savings, not actual savings, but savings of $150,000.
Yeah.
I was wondering how, from these anticipated savings, what technical changes, what are you going to do, not just for the Bright Library, but for all the libraries that you're servicing?
So I might answer that question in two parts. What are we seeking to do for libraries more broadly is increase the service delivery. So we'll be looking, for example, to remove the time limitations on computers and install additional computers. We'll be looking to put more money into children's programs. We'll be looking to ensure that our outreach program is very well supported. We'll be looking to have visiting author programs that are more coordinated across the region. So we'll seek to increase services. We'll also seek to create as best and as appealing an environment as we can through purchasing furniture and equipment. When it comes to savings, there is no such thing, I guess, really as savings. You either put money back in ratepayers' pockets, which we have done in recent years, 2.9%, third lowest rate increase in the state last year, 2.3% likely to be the lowest in the state this year. So that's the first thing we do with savings. The second thing is council determines what they will do with that money. By virtue of my first answer to the question, some of that money will make its way to libraries, but in conjunction with the other $4+ million of recurring savings we have made, council will in its budget every year determine what to do with that 150, how much goes back to the community and how much goes to other services. But I need to reconfirm that the only saving comes through the hub, nothing through the branches.
Thank you. This is just a comment. Councillor Roper, I found your comments offensive when you said that just a moment ago that you said that as a councillor,
I'm sorry. So no, I won't accept that.
Okay. It was offensive to me.
My comment to that is you can make a change next year if I stand for council. If you don't want the vote,
I'll do my best. I heard you tonight.
That's fine. That's fine. That's your opinion, and I encourage everyone to vote as they see fit.
Yeah. The other question I was going to ask, which is a technical question, was how do you arrive at the variation of rates for primary industry and for people, there's this one rate's at 73 and I think one rate's at 143.
So not a very simple question to answer, but it's
Perhaps you could refer me to where I could find that.
Yeah, so every number of years council completes what's called a rating strategy, which, depending on whether you believe in vertical equalisation of rates or horizontal, being vertical being people with greater building asset wealth pay more, or horizontal where everyone pays the same, council determines that differential. So the rating strategy typically looks at the cost of servicing those communities and those different cohorts of our community, provides advice to council, and then council, based on the community that they represent, determines the differential. The other thing, of course, is across the state there is some degree of parallel between the differentials. We are absolutely at the lower end of the spectrum. I look at the council I used to work at, their differential for rural rates, for example, is in excess of 90%.
Okay, thanks very much. That's the end of my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Are there any further questions from the floor? Mr. Dyer?
My name is Ray Dyer, and my question is to the CEO. I put her a letter into you the other day, Dave. It stated about the contractor down at Apex Park and what went on. I have a letter back from Rory Hazelton and an apology from the contractor. But there is a lot more information that has not been forthcoming. And I put the letter into you, not Rory Hazelton. I'm totally disgusted.
So
Sorry, I misunderstood. What is the question, Mr. Dyer?
I believe, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Dyer's question is, he wrote a letter to me. Why did a member of my staff respond?
Well, there is an old saying from the bush.
Delegation, isn't it?
Yeah, so I can assure you, in a $30 million organisation with approximately 200 staff, any organisation of our scale, it would be not uncommon for someone else to respond on my behalf. And also, I was on leave last week, so I can assume, in terms of getting you an expedited response, Rory sent a letter directly.
This was earlier than last week.
Okay. Well, either way, I'm saying it's not uncommon. It would be very common in large organisations. I would get in the order of 250 emails a day and numerous letters, and I can, much and all as I would like to respond to every one of them, I unfortunately have to draw on the resources that report to me.
Okay. This is to all councillors, actually. Is it not true that I put in a letter twice in the last 2 months stating to you, each and every one of you, that if you're not
Mr. Dyer, we've told you before, no interest in meeting with you. I've replied to you here in the chamber, it's been recorded. I will not be meeting with you ever. Thank you. My reply.
And actually, Mr. Dyer, I've actually met with you, if you recall, down at Myrtleford. We had about half an hour. We looked at the toilets and we looked at everything. So I actually met with you, Ray.
That is correct, Kate, but the toilets are still the same.
I beg your pardon?
The toilets are still the same.
I don't think we need to go to
I don't think you should go to the
ladies and
trains.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors who want to respond? Mr. Dyer, I've told you before that, well, I'm quite prepared to meet with you. You wanted to meet in certain circumstances. You organise it. I'll be there.
My biggest concern is, why are you not going to meet with me? What have I done that you will not meet? That is ridiculous.
We've met with you a number of times, Mr. Dyer, and it just keeps going on and on.
Mr.
Well, I won't stop because of the stonewalling I've got from this shire.
Mr. Dyer, we have a few meeting dates proposed with you, and I think I would feel more comfortable sharing some insight into why the councillors more broadly are not willing to meet with you in private rather than in this forum.
Well, this has gone to the state.
Thank you, Mr.
That's
Dyer.
in with Tim McCurdy.
Yes, I understand that.
The shire says one thing and Tim McCurdy says another.
Well, that's Mr.
What's
McCurdy's
going on?
prerogative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Are there any further questions from the floor? We'll move on.
Thank you, Kitty.
Presentation of reports by officers. Chief Executive Dave Barry, Royal Council's Victoria Support for Incorporation.
I so move.
Councillor Farrell.
I second.
Councillor Pearce. Mr. Barry, you don't need to talk to this, or?
No, Mr Mayor, I don't.
No, is there a Councillor Farrell, do you want to mention anything?
Well, I think it's highly appropriate that Jan Vonnox votes on this, considering she's part of the RCV. That's all I've got to say.
Councillor Pearce?
No, it's pretty straightforward, thanks, Mayor. No comment.
Oh, another opinion. The Rural Councils Victoria is funded to the tune of what by the state government? $4 million. What benefit do we get from the Rural Councils Victoria? I don't think we get any. I think we'd be a lot better off if Rural Councils Victoria was disbanded and the money was shared across all councils.
Thank you. Any further comment? We'll take it to the vote. Thank you. The recommendation as is written there. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. Carried. (8.2) Director of Corporate Performance, Mr. Britton. Finance Report, Quarterly Review.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Finance Committee met today, in fact, to review the Q3 financial performance, and essentially Council is tracking favourably in the operational and capital works areas, and the recommendation is that Council adopt the Finance Report for the quarter ending 31st of March 2016.
I so move.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Councillor Keeble got in front of you there. Councillor Keeble, seconded. Councillor Farrell.
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Keeble?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, we had a meeting earlier this afternoon. The quarterly report, you will see that we're around about $1.6 million of capital works still to go, which probably won't be done this year. And there's good reasons there for those. It's Myrtleford landfill, cell construction, the rehabilitation of Bunker landfill, maybe new library development and mountain bike trails. Just won't get done in the next 30 days, but they will continue to be worked on over the next 6 months, so that will happen. All in all, the works that have been conducted this year, capital works, is at 5.3 million, I believe. Is that the figure? I think it's 5.3 million, if I remember correctly. That's been a terrific effort, especially the last 6 months. With a lot of capital works going on in the Shire. Well done to the team. Thank you.
Councillor Farrell?
Well done to the team too, but I actually have some queries on what are the interests charged on overdue rates, and what percentage of the ratepayers are in this category?
Mr. Senior?
I don't mind who answers it.
No. So, through you, Mr. Mayor, the interest charged is set by the state government. You can Google it. It is called the statutory penalty interest rate, and it's typically reduced because of low interest rates, so it's probably in the order of 10 or 11%. But if you Google that, the second question was how many people are in arrears. I would have to get that question on. I would need to get that response to you from our rates officer.
Thank you. I just have another query too about the dinner plan special rates. We've got a negative for 47.5. Can someone please explain that?
Sorry, whereabouts in?
Page 87 on the. Have you got it?
No. This is the financial report.
Yeah, no, this is the financial report. Sorry?
No, we don't have the.
You haven't got that. Oh, don't worry about it. Just. You got it? Just move on.
Maybe Mr. Mayor, I can catch up with Councillor Farrell after this talks, because these are quite granular questions.
Yeah, that's fine. But don't catch up later. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor, is there any further comment? Councillor Keeble?
I didn't have any other further comment.
No, thank you.
Other than to thank
go to the vote then, thank you.
Leanne Wins for all the work. Thank you.
Yes. Appropriate. All those in favour? Carried. Against? No, sorry. Yes, no. Yes?
No, I voted with it.
Thank you. Didn't see your hand up. Alpine Shire Council procurement policy.
I so move.
Councillor Bonards. Councillor Pearce. Councillor Bonards, and you?
No, this has been done yearly, is that correct? So it's just formality. Sorry.
Councillor Pearce? No. Anyone else? Go to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried. Direct Assets, Community Sports Infrastructure Fund, Council financial commitment to supporting funding applications.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, this report relates to we're seeking Council's financial commitment for 2 funding applications through the Sport and Recreation Victoria. The first project is a female or a change facility at McNamara Reserve in Myrtleford, which will complement the recently upgraded surface area of the netball courts, and also the recent funding we received to complete the lighting there as well. And that project there is up to $500,000, and we're seeking a council commitment of $400,000. The second project is for upgrading the Mount Beauty swimming pool, which was raised earlier by one of the members of the gallery, and that is about a $300,000 project, and we're seeking a council commitment up to $100,000.
So move.
Councillor Bonards.
I'll second.
Councillor Farrell.
Just a quick comment. We heard from Mount Beauty people that it will be greatly received over there. And talking on behalf of Myrtleford, the female changing rooms at McNamara netball courts are absolutely appalling. The toilets are bad, so this will be a great outcome for the netballers and the tennis players that go there at Easter especially. Thank you.
Councillor Farrell.
I totally agree. I think sort of it's well known that there aren't enough female change rooms. It's not just rurally, it's also in municipal Melbourne as well. I would also like to see that possibly acquiring $400,000 for the Bright football to have some other female facilities there as well. It's greatly lacking within the Shire, and I think it's very, very important that we consider this in the near future. Thank you.
Mr Bird, did you want to make a comment, didn't you?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Farrell, you may be aware of the Alpine Events Park project, which is a $3.87 million project, and approximately half of that will go towards upgrading the existing facility at Pioneer Park in Bright, which will include female change rooms. So
fantastic. It's long overdue.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any further comment? No. To the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Directors Sustainable Development, Heather Green. Events, funding for Dinner Plain Marathon and Danaher's Drive.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council is aware that it provides funds for events in Dinner Plain, as it does in the balance of the Shire. We have excess funds remaining in that budget line for this financial year, with 2 new events that have come to Council, requiring a total of about $11,000 in funding. 2 events supported by the community of Dinner Plain, including Council's own advisory committee. So it's therefore recommended out of this current year's budget that an amount of $11,449 be committed to 2 new events, being the Danaher Drive and the Dinner Plain Road Marathon.
Thank you. Councillor Keeble. Councillor Pearce. Councillor Keeble.
Thank you. It's fantastic to see the Danaher Drive coming to our Shire. It's a fantastic cause, and it's great that our Shire is providing the services for that event. I hear that they've been great to work with, and we're looking forward to that event as well as the marathon. There'll be a lot of media, I should imagine, around some of the Danaher ones, so it's great to be involved. So,
a good PR opportunity for Dinner Plain, but as you say, equally a really good cause.
Councillor Pearce.
only concur with Councillor Keeble on his comments. Thanks.
Any further comment? We'll take to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Eight point 4.2, use of bird scare guns. This is as a result of a petition that was received by council a month ago, and is now on the table for discussion. Heather, you dealing with it? Yes.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Council did receive a petition requesting it prohibit or ban the use of scare guns at a specific property in near Myrtleford. This report outlines the legislation and the policy and local law that council has for managing scare guns. Scare guns are a legitimate farming practice and can occur in our rural parts of the Shire. Council officers have been monitoring the site referred to and have found that the scare guns were operated contrary to council's local law and policy, and then took appropriate action. Come next summer, when scare guns are in operation, that property will continue to be monitored, and should a breach occur, then the matter will be taken further, and as outlined in the report, council has a number of options to deal with that. Having said all of that, both council's local law and policy are over 10 years old, and it is probably timely to review that, given that there are other practices to be undertaken that can look at the problem of birds eating fruits and nuts, which is primarily the concern. And the recommendation on this report is that, recommendation 1 is that we will continue to monitor the said property, but also review the council policy and local law to determine its appropriateness going forward.
I so move.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce and Councillor Bonner. Councillor Pearce?
Yeah, it's an interesting one and an ongoing one. I've spoken to several renowned farmers around the districts, and to them, most of them are saying that it's an old-fashioned method of eradication of the birds, and it should be used with, doing some other methods like waiting till the birds are eating and monitoring them when your guns are going off. You should be there giving a bit of lead as well. But as our lovely Heather said earlier, 10 years, it was 21 years since we wrote a policy on this, on the scare guns, and I think it's well overdue that we have another look at it.
I think it's less than 21. We wrote it in our first term as council.
Oh, there was 95.
Yeah, well, we wrote a policy in 2006, but that's fine.
Councillor Bonner. Yeah, Councillor Bonner. Yeah.
Okay. I'm pretty either way with this. I believe that our policy is quite robust, but it does need looking at. If you live in the rural area, rural living, you have to put up with farming activities. And a scare gun, whether it's old-fashioned or what, they're allowed to use them. It's not our right to say you can't use them. I know this particular people that have this scare gun, and I know the people on the petition, and it's actually the positioning of the residents that it goes up a hill and you can hear it. I can hear it from my house, would you believe, and I live in the centre of Myrtleford. But I do think we're not Big Brother standing over people. We've really got to look at all kinds of ways we can deal with our residents and ratepayers. They've got a right to farm, people have got a right to live, but if you're going to live near a farm, you have to be put up with all the smells, the noise, and whatever happens in a farming vicinity. And that's what is worrying me about Alpine, is that too many people are moving out of town, it's near a farm, the first thing they say is the tractor starts at 5 in the morning. Yes, it does. The farmer gets up at that time, he starts milking cows. So live with it, or don't live there. I mean, that's the way I see it anyway.
I want to reply to Councillor Bonner a little bit.
Just to make, when you get it. Yes, yes. Thank you. Any further comment?
Yes, I'd like to pass a comment if I may.
Yes.
Look, I understand sort of, we have farmers here and they need to farm. I look at an alternative method of actually netting our fruit trees. I know it's expensive. We used to have scare guns in Wandillagong, and nightingales actually decide to net all their fruit trees instead. So we don't have any more scare guns. So I think there is an alternative. And of course we have to sort of be compassionate to our farmers. That's absolutely totally true. I mean, there's a farmer down here, one of our councillors, who, well, anyway, so look, I just think that sort of there are alternative methods to having, not having scare guns. That's about it.
Any further comment? Councillor Peters, you want to...
Yeah, just on a couple of the remarks made by my dear colleague, Councillor Von Arx. Look, I do realise the farmers do a bloody good job and a very essential job, but it doesn't say that sometimes it could be using a method, and as our report says, that they've been outside their hours with their firing at times. When you've got 37 people sort of are very upset by a situation, I think we've got to look at it in a positive way and sort of come out with a good outcome.
Thank you. I think it's time to take it for a vote. The recommendation is that note that the monitoring of bird scare guns at 36 Lower River Road East in Gapstead will take place next season, December 2016 to 2017, and a review of the council policy, control of noise and scare guns at the relevant section of Amenity Local Law Number 5 to ensure a balance between the right to farm and the impact on residents in the vicinity, the currency, that is the currency of the shots going off, consistency and the best approach to ensuring compliance. Number 3, advise the main proponent of the petition of these outcomes. All those in favour of that recommendation? Against? Councillor Pearce, thank you. The motion is carried. And might I say, now that we've voted, scare guns alone do not deter birds. They are smarter than we think. You've got to mix it with the real stuff, and that is not to say that you have to shoot birds illegally. There are some species of birds that can legally be shot, and they are normally the ones that are giving the farmers the problem. But it has to be a combination of different methods used to control the birds. You just can't set and forget the
Point of order, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
It's up to the farmer to decide what is best for his property.
That is correct, Councillor Von Arx. I'm sure that is correct. But sometimes a farmer might need to be reminded of the fact that that method that they are using is not always the best method. So that is my comment. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item.
So moved. Second.
Hang on, got to look at it first.
We're ahead of moving us.
Assembly of Councillors, thank you. Number 9. Councillor Von Arx, Councillor Keevil. All those in favour? Carried.
I'll go to the next one as well.
Thank you. Councillor Farrell. It's seconded. Just a recommendation.
I'll second it.
Councillor Pearce. Right. All those in favour? General business from my left, Councillor Councillor Farrell.
No, I'm tempted, but I won't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Pearce. Councillor Keevil.
The outcome of the dinner plane survey has been released. It's on our website, I believe. I just urge everyone to have a look at that if they like. And if there is a meeting, public meeting on Saturday at Dinner Plain, urge people to go there if they like to, and have a look. You'll see that more than 70% of the respondents were in the affirmative, if you like, and less than 5% were not in the affirmative. I think the survey says a lot.
Great. Yeah. Councillor Roper.
Oh, grumpy.
I don't think we need that comment. Councillor Pearce, thank you.
No, not me.
Councillor Horner.
I think I said it.
Item number 12, motions for which notice had previously been given. Nil. A reception and reading of petitions. There are nil.
Yep.
And documents for sealing.
Sign.
Councillor Farrell. Councillor Gable. All those in favour? Carried. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our meeting for the night. It has gone on a little bit long, but I think it was important that we took those questions and had those comments back, that it is an important issue for the community, particularly here in Bright. So I think it is, take that little bit of extra time is certainly well worth the effort of our councillors. I thank councillors for their input, and I thank the members of the gallery for their questions and input as well. Have a safe journey home this evening. It is the weather is not our best, but it is winter, so thanks for making the effort to come out. Good night.